Hello and welcome to the outreach program of Maulana Azad National Urdu University, Hyderabad. Today we have a very distinguished person with us. He is Professor Azizuddin Hussain, who joined Jamia Islamia in 1976 and retired last month, that is December 2017. Now, Professor Azizuddin has been teaching in the Department of History at Jamia Islamia, and before this he was associated with National Archives of India. Professor Azizuddin has about 203 articles to his credit and has contributed 27 books published by prestigious publishers. And we are very fortunate to have Professor Azizuddin here with us today at our university, and I welcome you, sir, to this university.
Thank you.
And as you have been associated with different libraries, you were former director at Rampur Library, we would like to know the history of manuscripts in India since 13th century.
Now, as far as the history of manuscripts in India is concerned, so though some manuscripts were available in Nalanda University, but especially with the coming of the Turks in India, we find that they brought with them a large number of books in the form of manuscripts, because some ulama, mashayikh and others, even the nobles, were also very scholarly people.
I see.
So when they migrated from Central Asian towns like Samarkand, Bukhara and from Iranian towns, so they brought with them their own collections of books. So in 13th century, when they came, so some towns emerged as the centers of learning and culture. And in that, I think we can count Lahore, Multan, Panipat, Delhi, Badaयूं, Burn and Kol, and other towns also. So these ulama and mashayikh settled down there along with their libraries. Especially with the Sufis, they were having a concept of the wilayat. So when Sheikh Muinuddin Chishti established himself at Ajmer, so he appointed his khalifas in different towns, as he has appointed Sheikh Hamiduddin Nagori in Nagaur, a town of Rajasthan. He appointed Khwaja Qutbuddin Bakhtiar Kaki in Delhi, and they were having their own madrasas and their own libraries. While I was consulting the Malfuzat of Sheikh Hamiduddin Nagori, Sururul Sudur wa Nurul Budur, so there he mentions about Nahjul Balagha, which is the collection of Hazrat Ali's sermons and letters.
I see.
And he praises that book. It means that was in the library of Sheikh Hamiduddin Nagori during 13th century in Nagaur.
Very interesting.
So not only in Delhi, but other major towns also, they became the centers of the learning and culture, and they also laid down the foundation of good libraries, because they were teaching to the students in their khanqahs. At the same time, we find ulama, those who were working under the supervision of the sultans of Delhi. So they also established their madrasas. For example, the first madrasa which was founded in Delhi was the Madrasa Muizzi. So naturally, Madrasa Muizzi was also having a library. And all these books were in the form of the manuscripts.
I see.
Then after the sack of Baghdad in 1258, when Baghdad was attacked and destroyed by the Mongols and some other Central Asian towns, so a migration had taken place to Delhi, because during 13th century, Delhi was considered as the safest town for Muslims.
I see.
So from the whole Muslim world, the elite migrated from those towns to Delhi and settled down in their towns. So did not come alone. They came with their own books. because they can't live without books. So they brought all the collections. So we find during 13th century, large number of manuscripts entered in India and came up in the form of the libraries. And we find references in the contemporary histories as Minhajul Sajaz, Juzdanis, Tabqat-e Nasri, Ziauddin Barni's, Tarikh Firoz Shahi, and in Malfuz literature, the references that these books were taught by the ulama and the Sufis. For example, one incident is recorded in Hazrat Nizamuddin Aulia's Malfuzat Fawaidul Fuad, that one day Sheikh Faruddin Ganshakar was teaching to his students. So he was using the book Teaching Through Awariful Ma'arif, but that was not a good copy of Awariful Ma'arif.
Okay.
And he was making corrections while teaching. So Nizamuddin Aulia said to Baba Farid that Sheikh Najibuddin Mutawakkil is having a fine copy of Awariful Ma'arif. Sheikh Baba Farid got angry and asked Nizamuddin Aulia to get out from his class because how you dare to say so. So after 2 days, when his son, Baba Farid's son, intervened and Baba Farid excused Nizamuddin Aulia, then he said that I know that Najibuddin Mutawakkil is having a fine copy of that manuscript, but I was teaching from a bad copy of Awariful Ma'arif so that you should know that how to teach from a bad copy of a book. So this was also one of the teaching methods. Now, as far as the books which were written during this period, so in that we find the references of the books written during earlier period. Though we don't have any record of the catalogue of these libraries, but we can suggest that almost all qasbas were having libraries. Even when I was child, so I belonged to the qasba Jalali in Aligarh district. So I think 10 houses were having good collection of books. So when this was the position in 20th century, so one can imagine that what would be the position in 13th century. Hazrat Nizamuddin Aulia gives references about the collections of books available in Badaयूं, because he was born in Badaयूं and brought up at Badaयूं, and then for higher education he came to Delhi. And there is one reference in Ziauddin Barni's Tarikh Firoz Shahi that Balban assigned the teaching of his sons to eminent scholars, eminent ulama. So when the secretary informed Balban, Sultan Balban, that now they have taught the fundamentals of Islam and Quran and also alphabets and everything is clear. So then Balban instructed, now you give them the gift and say goodbye to them. And now we shall appoint eminent historians to teach my sons, and they will teach Masrul Salatin and Adabus Salatin, which we have procured from Baghdad. It means that not only those who brought, but there was a flow of books even in the later days from Baghdad. If a new book is written in Baghdad, so the sultans and the ulama were making some arrangement that these books should come to Delhi so that our students could read those books to update their knowledge. As you do in your library, that the latest publications you ask the publishers to supply so that students should read the latest contribution. So not only in 21st century, even 13th century, they were asking, yes. And the other thing which we get in this period, that in 13th century, Barni mentions that earlier when these ulama of Delhi were facing any problem relating to any issue, so they were consulting the ulama of Baghdad, Bukhara or Samarkand for their correction. But during 13th century, the stage has come in the reverse order, that now the ulama of Baghdad and Samarkand, they were consulting the ulama of Delhi for their correction.
My God.
So this was the position, and this can't be done without the availability of the book.
Of course.
It means large number of books, and
Yes.
these scholars were reading and consulting and teaching to their students. So that suggests that large number of books, and not only they brought, but the ulama and the mashayikh who came to India, they also wrote so many books during this period. So from 13th to 18th century, we find that large number of ulama and the mashayikh have written lots of books on different topics, on Quran, tafsir, fiqh, hadith, and tarikh, and so many subjects, mantiq and falsafa and everything. That is why we find that large number of manuscripts came into existence, and we find that they were available in different madrasas, in different towns, in different khanqahs, because there were two categories of the madrasas. Madrasas run by the ulama, and the madrasas were run by the Sufi. And both the madrasas were having their own syllabus. They were not following each other's syllabus. They were having a separate syllabus and teaching according to their own syllabi. So in this way we find that large number of books were available in India from 13th to 18th century.
Okay. But since you are talking about books, let me ask you, which are the major libraries in India which have these manuscripts in languages like Urdu, Arabic, Persian?
Now as far as these collections of books are concerned, so there were these libraries were in madrasas and the khanqahs, and they were doing well. But in 1857, especially in North India, when Indians reacted against the British power, and we fought first war of independence. So after when the British army became successful in entering in different towns like Delhi, Lucknow and other parts of India, so they looted these libraries. The library of Red Fort and the libraries of the Madrasa-e-Rahimiyya, the library of Shiatul Safa Mosque, and some other this khanqahs and the dargahs. They looted. And the personal collections also, those who were having, they were all looted. So most of the manuscripts were taken away by the Britishers to London, and then they kept those manuscripts in British Museum. Now those are transferred to the British Library. Some are available in Germany, some are available in France. But lot of material is also left after their loot and plunder of these manuscripts which they had taken. It suggests that how much work was done by the Muslim scholars from 13th to the 18th century, that even the Britishers could not loot or could not take the whole material and the whole collection of books to London. Whatever is left, the Indian scholars or the ulama, they managed. The second setback to these libraries resulted in the partition of India. Partition of India also played a very damaging role as far as the collection of these books are concerned. For example, these towns which were the centers of culture and learning like Badaयूं, Panipat, my town Jalali, Amroha and Delhi and other towns also. So some people migrated to Pakistan. So they had taken their books also
along with them.
And on the way, some of those manuscripts were destroyed on the way. And we find that Panipat, which was one of the important centers of the learning, if partition would not have taken place, so the university which we are having in Kurukshetra, the University of Kurukshetra, if partition would not have taken place, then the university would have been in Panipat and not in Kurukshetra, because it was the center of learning emerged from the 13th century and highly enriched up to the period of the 18th century. So that was the second 1857, then in 1947.
47.
Then we find some new libraries came up,
Okay.
like Kashmir University's library and National Library, Calcutta, Khuda Bakhsh Library, Patna, then Maulana Azad Library, Aligarh, Razal Library, Rampur, and Salar Jung Museum, Hyderabad, Amiruddaulah Library, Lucknow, and other libraries also. So those books were transferred, or in archives also. Those books were National Museum, those books were transferred. So that is why we find we are having, even after losing
Enormous material.
so much heritage, still we are having large number of manuscripts and books in our libraries. And that is why I say that if any Western scholar from Europe, from England wants to work on Islam or any aspect of Islam, or any scholar from Egypt or from Makkah or Medina wants to work on this aspect, he will have to come to India. Without coming to India, he will not be able to complete his
research.
project. And I give one example. There is one town which is known as Ghadir, on the way between Makkah and Medina, where Prophet Muhammad performed the last pilgrimage, and when he was going back to Medina. So at Ghadir, Prophet Muhammad had asked his companions to stop, and there he declared about Hazrat Ali, that he is my Wasi.
Okay.
So a Iranian scholar, Allama Amini, after 1950, he wrote a book, Al-Ghadir, and he came to India, and he, along with his son-in-law and the son, 3 persons were there, because I was studying at that time in 6th class. So Ghadir is a town in Makkah, near Makkah. But if you are writing on Ghadir, so you can't complete that job
Unless you come to
in staying Makkah, Ghadir, or in Medina, or in Najaf,
So you'll have to come to
or in Karbala. So even on Ghadir, if you want to write, so you will have to come to India. He stayed for 1 year. So this is the significance of our library, that on Islam, India is having such a heritage that nobody can complete his project unless and until coming to India.
So we are proud of
Yes,
our
of
libraries.
course. Yes, yes.
But let me also, sir, tell you, since you mentioned about Rampur as a library, and you were director there for almost 3 years, if I am right. So tell us briefly about the history of this library.
As far as these libraries are concerned, I think this is a chain. One library going and another library is emerging. As today,
Correct.
so from 13th century to 18th century, that is Rampur's library. So this is the basically the traveling of a library. The library travel. Library must be there in the Madrasa Muizzi, but Madrasa Muizzi doesn't have today a single book. Then Madrasa Alai, then Madrasa Haus Khas, not a single book is there. Full of people, full of ulama, but not a single book. So these books and these libraries also travelled from one. Then this library reached to Radford. And then this library travelled from Radford to London, to France, and to Germany, and to also to Rampur also. Yes, in 1770, because this library was founded in 1774. So this was the period of the decline of the Mughal Empire and the rise of Rampur. As the decline of Sultanate, rise of Mughals, so it is coming. When Babur defeated Ibrahim Lodi, so he looted his library also and included his own library.
But it's very interesting that people were looting libraries also.
Yes, and they were preserving also. For example, Babur writes in Babur Nama that he also brought with him his own library from Andajan in Central Asia. He says that in India, the rainy season is very good, very pleasant, but it damages my book because of the weather. There is so much humidity, and naturally manuscripts will get damaged. So they were very sensitive, they were loving their books. Akbar also organized. So these libraries, they were traveling from one place to another. So they didn't stay. As today they are staying from 20th century up to this period, we find that they are having the same collection. So the Nawabs of Rampur were also lovers of the books. They loved, and not only they purchased manuscripts, but they also procured books from France and London, published during early period of the 19th century. And really those published books are also equal to the manuscripts, because very rare books which are not found anywhere else. And the scholars from coming western part of the world, they have recorded in their own statements, the books we found in Rampur library are not found anywhere, any part of the world. Even Maulana Shibli Nomani, who also travelled and consulted some libraries outside India, he has given a statement in the register of Rampur Library that the collection Rampur Library is having is marvelous. In 1888, he visited Rampur Library. Then Maulana Azad also visited this library in 1952.
Okay, while he was education minister.
And he also recorded in his statement that yes, there is no parallel to this collection. So this suggests the love of the Nawabs of Rampur for the books.
Of course.
So relating to Arabic, Persian, Sanskrit, Pashto, Turkish and Urdu, Hindi, 17,000 manuscripts are available in Rampur Library.
17,000.
And really the scholars, those who are coming belonging to different parts of the world, they appreciate this collection which is available in Rampur Library. When this Rampur merged with Indian government, then it came under Government of India's trust, and in 1975 it came under an act of parliament with the efforts of Professor Sayyid Nurul Hasan, who was the former Minister of Education, Government of India. So now it is under Ministry of Culture, Government of India.
Okay. I was just wondering, you see, since you have such a rich collection at Rampur as a library, then did you digitize some of the manuscripts so that people like us can also see?
No, digitization work is going on.
It's going on.
And I think when I was there, so we have completed 22 lakhs folios, and this work is in progress even today, and they are making very good progress, and now the digitized copies of the manuscripts are available to the scholars.
I see.
And they can consult, and we can also mail them, so all the facilities are available.
Oh, that's very good. Also, you see, the last question that I have is, I'm sure cataloging of these manuscripts must be very difficult. And though I am a librarian by profession, but I thought I'll just ask your views. How do you catalog these manuscripts?
As far as the cataloging is concerned, I think India is lagging behind of the manuscripts.
Okay.
Because and Iran had taken a lead in cataloging of the manuscripts. When I visited Iran, I saw their manuscript collections and their catalogs. So I followed the Iranian tradition, and we are having only list of the manuscripts. These are not the catalogs. And so when I was there, so I published 12 descriptive catalog of the manuscripts, so that if a scholar who wants to consult one manuscript, he should know from the catalog itself whether this manuscript is relevant to his topic of research or not.
Okay.
But as far as the list is concerned, so it is not sufficient. And there are so many libraries in India which are having good collection of manuscripts. They don't have the descriptive catalog of the manuscripts. For example, National Museum's collection of the manuscripts in Arabic, Persian and Sanskrit. It was founded, I think, on the suggestion of Maulana Azad, and still they don't have even the list of the manuscripts published list of the
Oh.
manuscripts. What is to say the catalog?
Oh.
So India is lagging behind as far as the cataloging of the manuscripts is concerned, and especially the descriptive catalog of the manuscripts.
So, though I have many other questions to ask you, but since you have to go, so I would like to thank you
Thank
for
you.
coming to this university.
It's my
And,
pleasure.
It was very, very enlightening for us, and especially for me, though I am from the library background, and I am sure it will be equally enlightening
Yes.
to our audience. So, sir, thank you very much,
Thank-
and we hope to meet
thank
you
you.
once again.